environment for Nigerians. Our focus on platform today is implementing environmental standards and regulations in Nigeria. Our guest is Professor Aliyu Jauro. He is the Director General, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, NESRA. Thank you very much for joining us, Prof.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right, so we'll just take you through a bit of Prof's profile, not too much. But when it comes to expertise for the environment, he's got that. Professor Aliyu Jauro is a professor of industrial chemistry. Now, he served at the University of Abuja Balewa University at the Department of Industrial Chemistry. That's in Bauchi. He holds a B.Tech honors in Industrial Chemistry, MSc in Chemistry, and PhD in Industrial Chemistry from the same Abuja Balewa University. That was in 2007. He's a fellow of the Chemical Society of Nigeria, as well as member Institute of Chartered Chemists of Nigeria. He was appointed in 2019, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Okay, as the Director General for NESRA, and he has been at the helm of affairs since that time. Thank you once again, Prof, for joining us on platform.
Thank you.
All right, you know how we do it on platform. We have our panelists seated already, and it's our environmental correspondent, Onenge Fineface, the man with the fine face. Onenge, thank you for joining us on platform.
It's always a pleasure to be on this program. Thank you for having me.
So, Prof, NESRA has a whole lot, in its hands when it comes to regulations, when it comes to enforcement, compliance, going by the rules, monitoring, to ensure that people adhere to certain rules and regulations. Our environment must be clean and healthy, for people and animals to thrive. Sitting at the helm of affairs, from your assessment and going by the global challenges, climate changes and all of that, painting a picture for Nigeria, what would you say is your assessment so far? Have we done well in terms of ensuring that our environment, is in a healthy state?
Well, I would not say we have done well. I will not say we have not done well. But as far as we are concerned, we are doing our best. You cannot just solve the problems once and for all. And we know, as you have said, it's a global problem.
Yes.
So if you take the issue of pollution, a lot of waste is being generated. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa.
Yes.
Currently, the population of Nigeria is getting to 220 million. So with the waste generation, if you consider per capita generation per individual now, they will be talking about a generation of about 60 million tons of waste per annum. So taking care of this waste is a huge problem. And presently, I can say we don't have all the infrastructure on ground for taking care of this waste. But a lot of frameworks are in place. Government have put a lot of policies, and we are trying to implement these policies. We are working together with stakeholders around the globe. And one of the key policies to implement has to do with the extended producer responsibility. Just recently, the federal government of Nigeria added waste as one of the sectors under its NDC, which is intended to use in order to cut down the emission of the greenhouse gases, more especially the carbon dioxide. So EPR is a key component, that is the extended producer responsibility. And NESRA is the agency that is implementing this policy of EPR, and we have established a lot of PROs working together with the relevant sectors. For instance, when you talk about the plastic waste, so we are working with the food and beverage industries. So they have set of the PRO that they call Food and Beverages Recycling Alliance.
Okay.
Likewise, we have problem of e-waste. They have also established their PRO, the EPRON, and we have the battery waste. And likewise, if you look at issue of the global warming in totality, is as a result of these emissions I have said. So we have programs in the pipeline that we intend to launch in order to cut emissions coming from both stationary and mobile sources. That is the vehicular emission and the generator emission. Likewise, in terms of biodiversity conservation, we are doing our best. We are working with relevant stakeholders to ensure that we conserve our biodiversity and all other environmental issues. We are doing our best to see that we solve these problems.
And just recently, you gave the president a thumbs up for his speech at the just concluded UN General Assembly, considering the fact that Nigeria is committed, to play a major role when it comes to mitigating effects of climate change. When we want to paint a picture for Nigeria, it's a global issue when we're talking climate change and waste management and all of that. But for us as a nation, it's a very Herculean task, especially for your agency. When you have to enforce your extant laws, when you have to go and ensure that people comply, talking about facilities, and individuals, because you were mentioning some of the policies that are already in place to ensure. How challenging is it? Because when we're a country of about 200 million population, and when you want to put a ratio to your workforce, and you talked about the challenge of infrastructure, how challenging is that?
Quite okay. There are a lot of challenges.
Yes.
There is inadequate manpower. We are supposed to be in all the nooks and crannies of the nation at local government levels, but presently our presence are only in the state capitals.
Why is that?
Well, I think it has to do with lack of manpower. There was an embargo to do with recruitment. And you don't just recruit in one day. The government does it in phases. So you seek for approval, you recruit, and after sometimes you will be given approval. And also the setting of the offices is a Herculean tax. There's no any provision for you to go and set up office. That is the funding. Usually we work with the state governments. We go to them, we seek for their assistance. They provide the office accommodation and the needed infrastructure for us to go there and start working. So presently we are in 34 states of the federation and we have 6 zonal offices. So we are absent in only 2 states, but we are only present the state capital. So with the inadequate manpower for you to cover the whole of this, some of these states are very, very large. So for you to go around the states is a big tax. So a lot needs to be done. There's need to get a lot of manpower. There's need to have the needed infrastructure for going out to do most of these jobs. If you go out, there's need for you to have the adequate tools, especially the handheld equipment that you go and carry out some tests, not just for you to go and look at industry and say this industry is polluting, because you can see the exhaust emanating a thick fume, but you have to use an instrument to get some measurement, scientific data that you can use to compare with what you have in your regulations, because all these sectors are being regulated with specific regulations. So in these regulations, we have some of this emission limits specified, so that when you measure, you compare. So if they've exceeded that limit, then there's need for them to fix that issue. And there's a process for requesting them to do that. If they don't do, there's a place where you have to sanction them.
And again, go ahead. I'm seeing you itching to ask a question.
I want to zero in on the EPR. The UN of recent has been very firm in making a case that polluters pay, also to boost circular economy. Looking at your EPR policy, consider the fact that food and beverage sector produce a lot of plastic waste, for instance. How much of compliance are we seeing, and how much push are you making to ensure that they comply? Because doing that will also dovetail to promoting the circular economy in Nigeria.
Well, I can say they are complying, but not adequately.
As expected.
Not as expected. Even day before yesterday, we had a meeting with the PRO, which is called the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance. So, the PRO is a third party that manages the issue of collection and recycling on behalf of these industries. So we have a lot of them now keen in, and very soon we'll start the enforcement. We'll start using all our regulatory tools to get all others to enroll. We have already automated our systems. The permitting system, the environmental audit is now being automated. It's done online. Some of the things we are trying to use is to make registration with EPR as mandatory before you get all these requisite certifications that is required by these industries. We are also working with other stakeholders like the Standard Organization of Nigeria, the Nigerian Customs, to ensure that all that are coming to them looking for some of these certificates, relevant certificates, key into the the PR EPR program, because this is key towards circular economy, and this circular economy is the only answer to this issue of waste generation.
The EPR you have now, does it factor the small scale food and beverage providers?
Yes, it does, but we are still talking with them. Last time we have the Association of Table Water Producers. They came because we said they should also key into the EPR. But they are coming up with their own different framework. They said that one is too big for them. So we are discussing with them to see how we can work with them in order to key into the EPR.
And we know that this waste management issue, has different sides to it. Let's narrow it down to electronic waste. We're in a technology era, and no doubt we'll be using a lot of technological equipment. Before now, the provision of Section 30 of the Principal Act used to be an impediment where the agency cannot carry out enforcement. Following the review of that now, the agency has the power to close down, facilities and all of that. When you close down some of these facilities, I'm asking a question in two sides now. You've talked about, low manpower, to effectively carry out your operations. But when you eventually do close down some of these facilities, how are they being penalized? What is the penalty for that? Are people, being persecuted?
Yes, there are several procedures. For instance, if a facility is in default, depending on the level of the infraction, so we look at it. Some may just be penalized. They may be required to pay some penalties, but some of them, we do take them to a court of law.
Okay.
And even the Principal Act empowers the agency to carry out this enforcement and seal facilities. The only thing the amendment of 2018 does is to give the agency the leverage to seal any facility that is of imminent danger. When it is polluting so much, you just go ahead and sell it before going to a court of law. But from the Principal Act, you need to go and get the court order before selling. So that is the.
Well, are people being convicted? Factory owners?
Yes, okay. They are. We do take them to a court of law, and most of these factories, when they get there, they usually opt out of court settlement.
Okay.
They don't like this prosecution. It takes a lot of time and is capital and intensive. But we do prosecute them. Even presently, we have filed some cases.
Okay. Because
we had an enforcement exercise recently, and there were a lot of violators. Some of the facilities obstructed the staff of the agency from accessing their facility. So it's a very big challenge.
You don't go with security forces?
We do.
Okay.
You go with the security forces. At times you go there, you find out that they also have, at times they use even some military men to guard their facilities. And most of them, they don't know the position of the law. They will just resist. Well, you shouldn't seal their facility.
That's where the court order comes in.
Yes. So when you get to the courts, that's when they will start to realize that it's a serious offense, and they will start coming over, begging and seeking for out of court settlement. And some of them, even after sealing a facility, they will go ahead to unseal and continue their business.
Wow.
So when we come back for inspection and we discover that, so some of this, we must take them to the court, sue them. And that's when they will begin to realize that what they did is a serious offense.
Onenge.
I would like us to move to the protection of wild fauna and flora. Nigeria is a signatory to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species CITES. And you are implementing CITES for Nigeria. As of today, lions are almost going extinct. Pangolins, because of the trade in pangolin scales, gorillas, elephant tusks, and so on and so forth. What difference is NESWA making to ensure that these species are protected and that those that deal illegally on the species and their parts are apprehended to stop the trend?
Especially poaching.
Poaching, yes. Just as you have mentioned, Nigeria is a signatory to the Convention on International Trade for Endangered Species, both flora and fauna. And also Nigeria enacted the Endangered Species Act in order to domesticate it in Nigeria. And also NESWA developed a national regulation that is called National Environmental Protection of Endangered Species in international trade. So this all in place to protect this species. So we are implementing these regulations. And presently you hear a lot about seizures, elephant tusks, pangolins, scales. So, but most of these seizures, they emanate from other countries. The traffickers use Nigeria as a transit hub because our borders are porous. So we are engaging with relevant stakeholders, especially the Nigerian customs, to ensure that some of these consignment are not allowed into the country. So we need to make our borders secure. But one of the most unfortunate things is presently NESWA is not at the ports and borders. Initially, NESWA was one of the agencies at the ports, Nigerian ports and borders, but when the government came up with the policy of ease of doing business, the agency was asked to leave the ports. So once in a while, when there are some of these cases, they invite the agency to come and just take over the specimen. So it's very, very difficult. We need to be there in order to put an eye. And likewise, we are sensitizing the general public on the need for all of us to do our best in order to protect this species locally, because, you know, due to poverty, people engage in a lot of things.
Yes.
They do hunting to source for food.
Yes.
The protein, and a lot of people are in the habit of even consuming this wildlife.
Yes.
We call it the
bushmeat.
Yes.
So people believe that it's sweeter than
More nutritious.
than the
Onenge,
domestic.
you sound like you've tasted it.
It's not good.
Not minding the risks involved.
Okay.
There's risks of contaminating some of these zoonotic diseases.
Yeah.
Most of these diseases you see, Ebola, even
Monkeypox.
the monkeypox,
Marburg.
the COVID, coronavirus, they are zoonotic in nature. They are contracted from these animals. So if you continue to do that, only God knows what will happen. So we need to desist from consumption of bushmeat. We need to desist from harvesting these wild animals. And even if we do,
While you mount surveillance at the border and entry points for illicit trade, how about surveillance for poaching and hunting of these wildlife, which is done locally?
we do. We do that in collaboration with relevant stakeholders. For instance, communities, we sensitize them for the need for them to put an eye, because as I have said, we are not everywhere. We are just stationed at the state capitals, and we also have other sister agencies,
Okay.
like the Nigerian Park Service,
Yes.
Nigeria has a lot of parks. Even recently, the Nigerian
Added 10.
president
Yeah.
added
10.
another 10 more national parks. So all these are put in place
You know, I
in
was
order
going
to
to
conserve these endangered species.
Yes, I was just going to ask you the collaboration with the national parks. Not too long, we saw the exports, because you mentioned that some Nigeria is being used, you know, as a means to an end for them there. And we saw the export of, they were confiscated at the port. They were going to export, you know, parts of donkeys that were not, you know, those are endangered species. And if you're saying that NESRA is not present at those ports, is that a challenge really? And what are you doing, you know, to ensure that whatever, you know, whatever ensued that law should be reversed?
Well, we are doing our best. The best thing is for us to get back to the ports and borders in order to do the needful. If you are not there, there's nothing you can do.
That's it.
So we have been writing to the relevant agencies to reverse this order so that we get back there. And we are still collaborating with the Nigerian customs, as I have said, to ensure that some of these consignments do not get into the country or do not get out. As you have said, the issue of donkey skins. So even last year, there were some seizures of a bulk amount of donkey meat.
Yeah.
They were slaughtered, they were about to be exported. And the Nigerian customs seized the consignment and handed over to us. So we plan and we carried out the disposal. So it happens once in a while. And we should know that if you continue to harvest these animals, anyhow, one day we will not have any to harvest. So for the sustainability purpose, we need to do it in a sustainable manner. Even those that are available, if you do it anyhow, you are going to exhaust what you have.
Yes, and not too long you also raised the concern about the complaints of the resurgence of artisanal miners, the illegal operations, especially at Osun River, that is causing degradation, the pollution of the river and degradation of the environment there. So far, what is the update? I know NESRA stepped into that issue, but what's the update?
We visited the mining areas, which is along the Osun River, the bank of the Osun River, and other communities. Really, the situation is very sad. The land is highly degraded. Farmlands are affected, especially the palm plantations around that area. So they carried out a lot of field work and samples were collected. So they have analyzed the samples. We received the results. So from what we saw, really that Osun River is highly polluted. It has a lot of heavy metals. There is also presence of lead. So certainly we are going back there to enforce. There is a way you do this mining activity. You have to carry out what we call environmental impact assessment before you start mining. How to take care of the environment while doing this exercise, and even how to manage it after you have finished, how to close the mine and how to reclaim the land. Most of them, they have not done this, even though they are artisanal miners, and there's no provision for them to carry out some of these activities. But some of them are high-scale miners, so there's need for them, even if they have the requisite permits and papers. They're supposed to have something like the ETP, effluent treatment plant. If you wash the minerals, you are not supposed to discharge the wastewater directly into the river. You're supposed to treat it in what we call an effluent treatment plant. Remove out all those pollutants, at least to the permissible limit. before you discharge the wastewater into either a river or so. And they have not been doing that. That is why the river is highly polluted. So it's just yesterday I received the report from the department, and I approve that they should get ready to go there for enforcement.
Okay, go ahead and do.
Nigeria, and of course the African continent, contributes the least to climate change in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. But for this part of the world, emissions come mostly from transport and cities. There is an interesting law you have. I don't think you started implementing the national policy, I think, on vehicular emissions, and then generator emissions control program. I mean, I find that interesting because fumes from vehicles and generators are serious forms of emitters. What's the status of that program so far?
Well, the programs are the National Generator Emission Control Program, and the National Vehicular Emission Control programs. So these programs are being provided in two of our regulations. One of them is National Environmental Control of Emission from Petrol and Diesel Engines, where there was this provision to ensure that all engines that use either petrol or diesel emits within a specified limit. So based on that, that's why we came up with the National Vehicular Emission Control Program, in order to carry out the annual testing of vehicles to ensure that they don't emit beyond what is being provided.
Accepted.
So we have already gone far on that program. We are about even to launch it. We are not just putting some finishing touches. We are talking with some state governments. Already we have visited some of them in order for them to key in, because a lot of them, they have a similar program on ground, but their target is just revenue generation. But our target is to secure the environment. And the second one is National Generator Emission Control Program. And this is being provided in National Environmental Air Quality Control Program, because generator emits a lot of pollutants. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, and at times you get a lot of particulate matters emitting and soot. So a lot of greenhouse gases that are coming out from these sources. So it's very, very important for us to control these emissions if we are serious about achieving net zero, as promised by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari by the year 2060.
All right, that's the target actually, but our target right now is to go on a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
Says that the Buhari-led administration has made remarkable progress,
like Lafia Transmission Station nearing completion.
Africa does not need charity, but partnerships that will promote the adequate investment
with the cooperation of all.
Sharing firsthand the experiences of reporters on the field as they bring to you weekly the beauty of Nigeria's diverse culture and the economic potentials therein. The Correspondent, development through the eye of the grassroots, showing every Monday at 1:30 p.m. on the network service of the NTA, with a repeat broadcast on NTA News 24 and NTA International. Join us.
Now, what could make someone set out on a journey and not get to his or her destination? Now, imagine the victim who cannot reach out to these responders, who doesn't even have the phone to reach out. Hello, thank you very much for joining us on platform. I'm Ruth Agwe.
And the girl especially if the girl is a minor, she's not yet 18 years, if she gets pregnant, realize that such girl is sent out of school and the boy is left in school.
Just park to pick the call.
So how much sensitization is there, Paris?
I don't agree. A lot of people are just deaf.
All right, thanks for staying tuned. We're still looking at implementing environmental standards and regulations in Nigeria. Prof, we're talking about the net zero target for Nigeria. Let's also delve into the issue of IGR. You talked about low income, which is which is affecting the provision of infrastructure that will enable you carry out your mandate effectively. IGR, there have been concerns that, the agency should be capable of, generating its own IGR. What's your take on that?
Well, the act establishing the agency make provision that the agency should generate funds and use it in the running of the agency day-to-day activity. And likewise, the government should also provide some fundings. But later on, there was a modification that the agency should remit part of the IGR generated and use part of it. But last year in December, then there was amendment of the Finance Act,
okay,
which said all agencies which government pays the salaries, the overhead and capital, whether it's enough or not, they are fully funded.
Yeah.
So all income generated IGR should just go into the federal government corpus. So that is the situation. The agency is really inadequately funded for now. That's why we are struggling. So
but is the agency not looking at means to an end, alternative source?
Well, yes, if you generate, they say it should go to the government.
When people pay these fines, when they violate the laws, where does the money go?
It goes to the coffers of the government.
Okay. Onenge, pick up from there.
I want us to look at the issue of poor adaptation to green technology by the industry in Nigeria. Considering the fact that climate change is upon us and the world is shifting to green and clean energy and technology, how do we get to motivate our technological sector, our producers and manufacturers to also start this transition to green technology?
Well, a lot of things are on ground. We are now talking about green economy. So there are a lot of funds available even for some of these industries to assess what they are green funds, the green bonds and other things. So all these are incentives that are on ground to encourage these industries to switch to green technology. And even necessary as an agency, the permit we issue, annual permit, recently we review it. And part of the components we have now incorporated is the issue of green technology. How far have you got? The source of fuel, are you using some green form of energy? So we have incorporated about 3 additional parameters for the computation of these permits.
What are those parameters?
One is the use of the natural resource. How do you ensure minimal usage? For instance, if you use water, do you recycle the water you use to ensure sustainability? Likewise, you generate your fuel, because when your energy, the one you use, what kind of energy do you use? Do you use a lot of diesel? Do you use solar form of energy? So all these are used in coming up with the permit that is issued to some of these facilities. So they're a form of incentives. And likewise, this year we intend to kickstart the National Environmental Compliance Award where we intend to pick some of these industries that are compliant and give them an award. So it's going to be an annual event, and His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari is going to be the chairman, and the Honorable Minister of Environment is strongly behind this in order to encourage these industries to key into all this green technology in order to allow Nigeria achieve.
And when you punish defaulters, I know once upon a time, people preferred to default and pay the fines rather than do the right thing because the penalty is almost nothing.
Did you review the penalty?
Yeah, any review?
The fine for the penalty.
Yes,
that is
So that's
now.
what you said. Yeah, the fine for the penalty.
Well,
because
that
if I
is-
know it, if some persons know it's small, like it said,
You just
they
commit the
don't
crime.
mind.
Yeah, and pay the fine.
So that is one of the major gains of the revised Act of the 2018. When the Act was revised, the principal Act usually made provision that the judge, that is when any defaulter is taken before any court, they usually put a ceiling
Okay.
that he should be fined not more than certain amount. But when the act was reviewed, given the fact that most of them are not willing to comply because the amount is not punitive enough, so the ceiling was removed.
Okay.
So now what we have is not less than. So the judge is at leverage to impose fines that are punitive enough depending on the quantum of the offense.
Okay.
So presently we are reviewing our regulations, and in the regulations we are capturing this issue of fines, specific penalties and fines.
So how well are you working closely with stakeholders? You're going to reward people who are complying to the guidelines concerning environmental control. Are you in collaboration with other agencies? We should be. But how well? What's the synergy like? Because you can't do the whole work alone.
Yes.
Okay.
Environmental issues are multifaceted.
Yes.
So it's not within one agency. And the act establishing the agency mandated the agency to collaborate with all relevant stakeholders, both locally and internationally, on matters on environment. So we are working with a lot of ministries, departments, and agencies. You mentioned something to do with transportation. So when you talk about road transportation, they emit. So on such issues, we collaborate with them.
Okay.
We work with Ministry of Housing because we have a regulation to do with construction sector. Is one of the sector also that affects the environment. We also work with Ministry of Water Resources because yes, water is one of the major.
You can't talk sanitation and not mention water.
Yes. So we have a lot of stakeholders. Both locally, we work with NGOs, civil society organizations, religious bodies. So we discuss environmental issues, and annually we convey the annual stakeholders workshop where we invite state governments and all these relevant stakeholders to come and brainstorm on matters to do with the environment and for the way forward, how to implement some of these regulations down to the ground level.
Prof, you know, most of these environmental hazards are man-made. And I know NESRA is doing a lot when it comes to campaign for TV and radio. You even have a program running on NTA, NESRA Watch. Is that enough when you have to meet these people one-on-one? You understand? The sensitization has to be radical because everybody has a role to play. In that regard, how much effort do you want to put to ensure that you reach the target people?
We are putting a lot of effort. Presently, our office is nationwide. We do go out
just at the
weekly.
state capitals you mentioned.
Yeah, we do go out weekly, visit some public places just to go and enlighten them We go with public address system. We do distribute some handouts and pamphlets to talk to them on the need for them to comply with these regulations. It's for their own good. We also visit some traditional rulers where they usually gather all their subjects, and we give them lectures. Even recently, we went on specific environmental sensitization education to do with the flood, because the current burning issue that is worrying everybody is flood. Flood affected a lot of communities. So we went out specifically to most of these areas where they have this issue to sensitize them on what they need to do in order to keep safe and also to protect the environment. So we continue to engage with them, and we try to emanate some other ways to reach out to the nook and crannies, as I've said.
Onenge?
I have a worry. Why would a multinational company, for instance, come to Nigeria, operate with rules different from what they have in their parent country, and then somehow contribute to polluting and contaminating our environment? Can NESRA stop this trend?
Yes, we are doing our best. We don't allow any multinational to violate our regulations. We sanction them just like the local companies. There's no distinction.
Although the operational standards seem to be different when they come to Nigeria, maybe even Africa.
I can't say. Maybe you have to give me an example. Like
the oil companies, for instance, the multinational oil operators.
Well, the oil companies are not within our purview. You know, we have a sister agency that is called Nostra.
Nostra.
Yes, they are those that are responsible for oil and gas sector.
Okay.
But for other industries, apart from that, we ensure that they comply.
And then let's look at the prosecution processes. Do you experience delays when you go to the courts to prosecute environmental offenders?
Yes.
Really.
Because you know, I
How
asked
do you do that?
earlier about convictions. How many people have been
Really,
convicted?
it's a big challenge. And most of the judges, they don't appreciate the urgency of disposing environmental cases. There are a lot of delays. So even now, the agency is thinking of approaching the National Assembly in order to carry out some amendments if there's going to be a provision for us to have some lower costs where you can try some of these minor offenders in good time. And we also try always to engage with the top administration of the High Court in order to let them appreciate issues on environment and the need for them to give a speedy trial. So I've been to the CJ of the Federal High Court to discuss, and I think we are planning to go back so that, yes, we can have some judges that are assigned specifically to treat environmental cases, and also we intend to have organized some workshops where some of these judges will appreciate some of these environmental issues, so that when such matters come before them, they will give a speedy trial to serve as a deterrent to some of these offenders.
Going forward, Prof, we've said a lot when it comes to the regulations and ensuring people comply with the extant laws. Since 2018, the review of some of these regulations, are there specific areas you would want, part of your recommendations to ensure that they are being reviewed?
Yes.
Okay, what are they?
The review of the regulation is not an easy task. There are stages you follow. You start in-house. You look at it. So you organize a lot of workshops. You do in-house review to look at some gaps. Whatever you set out, when you start to implement, you discover that there are some gaps. So you have to bring them in, and also you have to invite relevant stakeholders to come for a critical workshop, make presentation. They will look at it, have some input So before you finally clean it up and send it to the parent ministry, that is the Federal Ministry of Environment, they will also look at it.
So it's a long process.
It's a long process.
Okay.
So when you start, it may take a year or two to complete. But we have already started. Some of them are already out. They have been reviewed, and the amendment is already out. They are gazetted. So presently, I think we have about 6 now in the pipeline, and in a few weeks' time, we are going to have a stakeholders forum where we intend to consider additional 6 regulations for review.
We are still moving forward now, considering that Nigeria has added waste to its NDCs. Going to COP27, what innovative actions would NESRA take to Sharm el-Sheikh in support of Nigeria's NDC?
In support of Nigerian NDC, as I've mentioned, we are working on the EPR, implementation of the extended producer responsibility, to enable Nigeria achieve a circular economy. So this is one of the things we are going to be talking about. Secondly, the issue of emissions coming from the stationary and mobile sources, because energy sector in totality is one of the highest emitters. When you talk about energy, it encompasses electricity generation, also includes the transportation sector and the energy used in some of these industries. So we are looking at some of these high emitters, and it's one of the things we feel Nigeria should go forward when it comes to the issue of COP27 and also the issue of climate funding, so that Nigeria can be able to achieve the net zero target in 2060.
Indeed, funding DG NESRA, Prof, has a lot to play. If we want to achieve that set target of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is part of your mission to inspire personal and collective responsibility to ensure an environmental friendly society. As your final thoughts, what is the vision you envisage for Nigeria if we must achieve that mission of the agency?
Well, the vision I envisage is the vision of the agency, which is to inspire personal and collective responsibility, so that all Nigerians will key in order to achieve sustainable development. That is what I envision. So there is need for all of us to key in order to have a clean and healthy environment. Which is the vision of NESRA.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Aliyu Jauro, for your time on platform. We'll continue to give our necessary support, talking about NTA, to ensure we live a healthy, we have a healthy environment so we can all thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
On NGA Fine Face, our environment correspondent, thank you for your time on platform.
Again, thank you for having me, Rose.
All right. So we have been talking about implementing environmental standards and regulations in Nigeria. There's a whole lot you and I can do if we want to see a healthier environment, if we want to, progress as a nation. It is a collective responsibility. You're not left out. That's Platform. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.